Afternoon, wherever you are today. I have the pleasure today of having a coffee talk with a good friend of mine and a great CEO, Scott White. And Scott and I are actually, believe it or not, about 2 miles away from each other, but we're being safe and we don't want to wear masks on a Zoom call. So we're going to do this way today, and hopefully next time we do it, it will be side by side in person. Scott, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm
Good.
looking forward to the future.
We all are. I wanted to first ask you a little bit about where we are right now. I don't want to go backwards, but I'd like to know, in terms of openness as of March 4th, where are we in Palm Springs in the desert?
So all of our hotels are open with the exception of two, and the two hotels that are closed are going through ownership changes. So they're not closed, I guess, directly or indirectly to COVID. They're having some changes, which is good. And the destination is actually doing quite well. We started to see occupancy on the weekends pushing 70%, which is nice to see. Midweek, even with leisure, is pushing closer to mid 30s to 40%. So we're seeing really nice demand. And generally, the most of that growth has been coming out of Southern California drive market up until now. Now we're starting to see the flights are filling up. Seattle, the Northwest, the Midwest, even the East Coast. So we're getting some nice data back from our hotels that they're starting to see some growth. We were on a call earlier this week with one of the airlines, and they're very, very happy with the load factors for March. So I think March is going to be a great month, as great as it can be without group.
Who are the two hotels that are not open?
The Colony Palms in Palm
Oh
Springs
yeah.
and the Embassy Suites in Palm Desert.
Oh, so okay. I know both of those hotels. Okay. So what's going on with the Andaz?
So the Andaz, from my understanding, went through an ownership change, and it's becoming a Thompson hotel.
Oh, okay.
So that's they're still going through the finagling of the change of ownership and the contractor and all of those legal issues. But the latest announcement is a Thompson hotel.
Great.
But I
And
have
then,
no date in terms of opening or next steps at this point. Yeah.
right. So in terms of your scope, I know you have 5 or 6 municipalities, right, that make up your scope of influence. What's the largest capacity a meeting can be held tonight, for example?
The JW Marriott is our, and the La Quinta Resort are our two largest properties that are open. The JW Marriott, which has 798 rooms, is right now taking capacity up to 400.
Oh,
La Quinta, I believe they're about the same, 50% capacity. That's been kind of shifting and changing a little bit.
so what's the rule? It's 50%?
I think the rules really, there's no rule. They can open up 100% if they want to, and we do have a lot of hotels that are at 100%. It just depends on their capacity in
Sounds like
terms of
Texas.
social distancing and so forth. I think as the temperatures get warmer, really what limits them is the pool area, because you really have to manage that pool area, and you don't want to have too many guests and have those outdoor areas that people want to enjoy. Not be able to access them. So I think they've been trying to manage that process.
Well, that's surprising to me that you can go as high as 400. That's fantastic, because we know that in San Francisco and some other places it's much smaller, even in California. So I wanted to ask you, when is your next convention center booking?
That's going to be in September. Right now, the center is being used as a vaccination site. It was a testing site. It's just switched to vaccines, which is exciting. And right now there is no state guidance as it relates to convention centers, so we're pushing for that right now through the California Travel Association to get guidance from the governor. But right now, when we talk to the hotels from a group standpoint, we're using the restaurant guidance as kind of the metric. So when we get to the red tier, which should hopefully happen next week or in the next 10 days or so, Restaurants can go indoor at 25% capacity. And we're telling hotels that groups can use meeting space at 25% capacity. And then when we get to the orange tier, it'll be 50%. And the yellow tier is 50%. And then we get out of that, then it goes back to 100%. So we're forecasting and anticipating that we'll be back at 100% for groups and for the convention center this fall.
Oh, great. That's wonderful. Your background slide with the Southwest is a reminder to me. I am flying for the first time Southwest tomorrow out of Palm Springs, and to be quite candid with you, I had the opportunity to drive to LA and catch a flight out of LA back east to see my mom, because I have the vaccine now. I have both shots, and instead of driving, I'm flying to Oakland. I'm going to take a friend to dinner and then fly to LA and catch a flight to see my mom. And I won't have to drive, that 2 hours. And, but it's so exciting for me to see Southwest in the market, and particularly touching, it's not as if they're redundant destinations. It's not like, they're going to Denver, which we already had lift to Denver, or San Francisco. We already had lift to San Francisco. So tell me more about what's going on with Southwest. Where are they flying? How many flights a day?
So I have to say, Southwest was probably the very first. I got here 10 years ago, and from day one, I think every month I would get a question from somebody, when is Southwest flying here? And we as an organization started actively getting involved in air service development. We've hired a company about 7 years ago and been courting them. And it was exciting to get Southwest last year. They're flying to Oakland, Denver, and Phoenix. So Phoenix is 3 flights a day. Denver is 1 flight a day, and Oakland is 2 flights a day. So, and that's been kind of changing. They've been adjusting that on a regular basis. But again, we spoke with them, and they're very, very happy with the load factors and where things are going. We think that they'll expand. And the nice thing about Southwest is they're year round. As our destinations, we've always struggled with the summertime going to losing some of the air service. And now we're seeing more and more of the airlines staying year round. And we're now flying nonstop to 28 destinations. As an example, JetBlue, who flies to JFK for us on a seasonal basis, is going to start in September, 5 days a week. And then they're going to add Fort Lauderdale also in September, 2 days a week. So if you want to go from here to Fort Lauderdale, Brian, you can do that. And then in December, they're going to add Boston 1 day a week. So we're getting a lot of great flights and new lift into the destination. Alaska is going to do San Jose starting in the fall. Reno and Boise is online now, and that'll probably come on and go back in the fall as well. And then we got Delta flying from Atlanta, Seattle, Minneapolis, and Salt Lake. So Brian, you don't need to go back to LA. You can fly. This could be your headquarters. You can just about get anywhere you want in the world from Palm Springs.
Well, it is the headquarters for a while. I'm flying back from JFK nonstop on JetBlue on the 21st, and my only complaint is I don't have Mint yet, but maybe they'll consider Mint down the road.
They've tested it a couple of times and it did well. So I think keep telling them that you want Mint and maybe it'll come.
The ASAE announced yesterday they were not going to have their annual meeting in person. What's your feeling on that?
I was disappointed. I was actually looking forward to that particular event. I thought that was going to be a nice opportunity for our industry to come together. Everything that we're reading in the press is that we should have major vaccines done by this May, June, July timeframe. So I was really was heartened sad to see that happen. But I understand there's probably lots of difficult decisions that need to be made. So I think the next big event will be IMEX, and we're looking forward to IMEX.
And so from the standpoint of if you can just anecdotally give us a perspective on this, we're hearing that during the last 12 months, many of the hotels were forced to furlough a lot of staff, particularly staff that were not producing, couldn't produce. You couldn't have a wedding, so you don't need a catering director. You couldn't have a banquet,
Yeah.
and a lot of F&B employees were furloughed, and salespeople even. So, what would you say would be the I'll call it the turnover rate in the sales and marketing of your community hotels?
I don't have, I mean, anecdotally, I would say it's about 25%. I think we were fortunate for a lot of our hotels to keep the sales managers on board. A lot of people did partial furloughs, so off a week or off 2 weeks, on for 2 weeks. That's what we did with our staff. We have 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. We now have our entire sales staff back 100%. So we kept our sales team intact. We didn't lose anybody. We were able to keep everybody through the pandemic the entire time. And then when we talk to the sales managers, I've been doing one-on-ones with them all week. Basically, they're telling us all of the sales managers are either back or they're due back later this month at the properties. And I think we're gonna have a little bit of a few people here and there that we might lose, but it won't be dramatic. So we'll be able to really keep a consistent relationship with your team and the destination. So looking forward to that.
We have not experienced a lack of contact with most DMOs and most national sales people, so that we've been fortunate in that regard. There's always been somebody to answer the phone. What we've experienced, however, is that, as you know, we have annuals in Palm Springs, Indian Wells, La Quinta, and a lot of the people that we would just say, play it again, Sam, aren't there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have to say your name twice. You have to say the name of the organization twice, and somebody's got to go dig up the file. In terms of new business coming into the valley here, where are you seeing the new business coming from? I mean, was it formerly urban meetings that were meeting in LA or San Francisco, or are you taking market share from Tucson? Where are you getting your growth from?
So this is the first month where we're actually seeing some lead growth. We had almost 50 leads in February. I would say 10 of those were for 21. 7 of those were for ConferenceDirect. So thank you and your team for giving us leads in February, almost 4,000 room nights. And it's a pretty even mix to what we had before in terms of corporate, association, and SMERF. Obviously, the association is booking a little bit further out. The corporate and SMERF and religious groups are booking a little bit earlier in. We are seeing a little bit of movement from groups that have been in places like San Francisco, Seattle, more city center type locations that are now looking for a resort destination where it's a little bit more open spaces, different type of product. We are seeing more and more of that, and it's really picked up in the last few weeks.
So people are pivoting from destinations many times because of the attractions being closed. Broadway not being open. We're seeing people saying, well, we go to New York for shopping, and there's no such theater in the world like Broadway. Well, when Broadway's closed and their favorite store is boarded up, they're saying, well, we should go to New York another time. What attractions do you have that are not open yet? Or are they all open? I know that now all your restaurants are open. And soon, I guess, when we get to the next level, the indoor dining will start up again. But I mean, do you have all your golf courses open? Are your tennis facilities, swim facilities? Tell us about your attractions.
Pretty much everything has been reopened. The aerial tramway is reopened. The Living Desert's reopened. The BMW Performance Center is reopened. The Desert Jeep Adventures is reopened. A lot of the bike tours are open. All the golf courses stayed open through the pandemic. All the tennis facilities stayed open as well. The spas are back open as well now. which obviously is a huge attraction. As soon as that reopened, the feedback was they got booked up immediately. I think there's a huge pent-up demand for spa services, so they're doing very, very well. The only thing that hasn't reopened yet, which I think will open up soon, is the Palm Springs Art Museum, the McCallum Theater, live entertainment. That hasn't opened up yet for obvious
Of
reasons,
course.
Broadway. But there's, all the restaurants are open with outdoor dining. I think we'll have indoor dining here soon. Fortunately for us, the weather's great right now. I think it's going to be 82 on Friday, so it's perfect to sit outside. The city's working now with the state to keep those outdoor dining parklets at least in place for another year, maybe permanently. They're looking into that, which I think would be great to have all those restaurants on Palm Canyon and El Paseo and throughout the valley have that additional outdoor space. Alfresco dining, I think, is perfect for our destination, certainly for the majority of the year. And then we have some great new attractions coming online. Palm Springs Water Park is turning into the Palm Springs Surf Club. So a really nice higher end experience, and that'll be opening hopefully later this year. That's in full construction mode right now. And that'll be fun for groups, for activities, for team buildings and different ideas. And then we have the new arena that was originally scheduled for in Palm Springs has now moved to the center of the valley, kind of the Palm Desert area out by the Classic Club. And that's going to have 11,000 seats. It'll be home to the American hockey team, which is the farm team for Seattle's, the Kraken. And then they're partnering up with Live Nation. So Live Nation is telling us that they want to bring out some really top acts and get them kind of warmed up before they go out on their world tours. So I think we're going to get some really nice entertainment starting in the fall of 22 for the destination as well. And I think that'll be a game changer for us. And then I think we can, talking with them, go after like e-gaming and go after amateur sports events, hockey events, and so forth. They're very, very collaborative and want to work with us to try to bring in events to use that arena.
I'm not asking this question because I know the answer. I'm curious. What is going on with Stagecoach and Coachella?
Yeah, it's still unknown. The rumors out there are that they are going to not take place in October and move to April. Although one of my board members yesterday got a ping to buy tickets this year for Coachella. So we're trying to figure out, there's a company out there selling tickets for Coachella. StubHub or somebody was selling tickets. So we're trying to figure that out. So that one is still, I can wake up one morning and they say it's off. And then the next day I hear it's still on. So I don't know what's going to happen. In 2016, they hosted an event called Desert Trip with the Rolling Stones. It was a 3-day concert with 2 headlining acts each night. I'm hoping that maybe what they'll do is do a Desert Trip event in October and then take Coachella to April, which would give us 2 large events. The tennis tournament, which is our other large event.
And you're talking April of 21.
22, yes.
Yeah.
And then the tennis tournament, which typically happens in March, is still a possibility for the last 2 weeks of October. So we could potentially have concerts in the first part of October and tennis at the end of October. I think we'll have all of this resolved this month, is my guess, 100%.
So from a standpoint of availability for fourth quarter and availability for first quarter of next year, how do you all look? I mean, are you full? Do you have availability?
We do have availability. We're down third quarter 18% to say, the previous normal years. We're down about 10% on the group business in the fourth quarter. So we've got a good base on the books for the fourth quarter for the fall, but there is still some availability for that. 22 is definitely getting much busier. A lot of our leads are going into 22. We are doing an incentive for June, July, and August. So if a group books us Sunday through Wednesday, we'll do a $10 rebate for each room. And then on the weekend, we'll do $5. And that'll be for years 21, 22, and 23.
Well, that's exciting.
And the incentive, it's going to go through the end of September, and then we'll extend it if we need to. But we're trying to drive some business for that summer. That's really our biggest opportunity right now.
Talk in general terms on, I haven't read, I'm not being coy, I haven't read the STAR report for Palm Springs, but nationwide, average rates are down about 30%. what is the desert like in terms of prime season? So, not the shoulders and not the summer, but what would you say um, we're gonna experience in, let's say, November of this year, rate wise?
Yeah, so rate for 2020, we were only down 9.8% for the entire year of 2020. Now, obviously, we had a little bit of some strong months early on, but for the rest of this year, the hotels have really been doing a good job of keeping their rates up. January was tough. I think January ADR was down about 33%. And February is starting to come back up again into the 20s. And so we're starting to see some strong rate growth. And I think that's the area, because the hotels are limiting, some of the larger hotels are limiting capacity, they can do that. I think that'll change a little bit as the hotels go to 100% capacity and they have more supply in the marketplace and you create a more competitive environment. So I think the fall will be off 10%, 15%, somewhere in that range.
I know certainly the real estate market's never been higher, in Palm Springs. At least in my neighborhood, things are selling at record highs. In terms of the hospital capacity for, the people with COVID, what is it like now?
I was just looking at the numbers this morning from last week. We've got 9 patients in ICU and 54 COVID patients amongst the 3 hospitals. So that has come way down. We're in really good shape from a hospital standpoint. And overall, the Valley has actually fared and done much better, say, than Riverside County. Unfortunately, we get lumped in with the Riverside County headlines in the media and so forth. But if you look at the District 4, which is our district, we perform much, much better. I think most of our clusters have been in the agricultural sectors out east in the Coachella Valley. We've got 70,000 acres of farmland here. So they got hit, the packing facilities got hit pretty hard. So those numbers skewed the headlines quite a bit. But the numbers for Palm Springs and all the major resort towns where our properties are at are very, very low. I mean, almost to the point where we should be almost green in the next few weeks based on if we were being evaluated on our own, which we're not. We're being lumped in with Riverside County.
I see. So tell me what you think we'll be talking about a year from now. What will the hot topics be a year from now?
That's a good question. I think, from a DMO standpoint, we've been changing and evolving over the last 5 or 6 years. And I really think that COVID and the pandemic has accelerated our role as a DMO within not only the industry, but also in the community. We started getting involved in air service development, like I said, 7 years ago. Now we're heavily involved in things like workforce development, trying to establish a Cal State campus here with 10 or 12,000 students, because we know that our hotels need help with workforce development. We need to diversify the economy locally. We're heavily involved now with economic development agencies throughout the Valley and the county on how do we diversify the area. As you mentioned, the real estate market's been off the charts, and a lot of these individuals are coming in from the Bay Area, high tech, from New York as well, and the Northwest, and we're starting to see a lot of interest for these companies or these organizations to kind of set up a mini headquarters here or shop here. So I think we're going to see the destination change, and we as a DMO have to change with that as we go forward. And I think as an industry, it's really about setting the priorities for what's important for the traveler, for the visitor experiences, making sure that we're relevant for the future, and also making sure that our hotels are addressing the needs of the meeting professionals. I keep getting conflicting reports. You keep hearing about hybrid meetings. And the more and more I'm hearing now is that more and more of our clients are saying, no, they're going to go 100% in person and they're not going to do hybrid. You're hearing a little bit of that. I don't know what you're all hearing, but I kept thinking that we were going to be dealing with a hybrid demand here in the future, but I maybe it's not going to be as great as I thought it was going to be.
I think the best way to answer that question is the events that have trade shows as their key component. The extension of the meeting is only pretty much the general sessions and a couple of breakouts. So, for example, in IMEX, which is in our industry, people are either going to go or they're not going to tune in. It really is about a face-to-face meeting. On the clinical side, we're seeing that many of the physicians groups actually want to trade science one way or another, and so they're hybriding the meetings for, in some cases, continuing medical education credits that they require, by law to have. And so credentialed groups, I call them credentialed groups, are definitely having a virtual, sometimes having a hybrid meeting. And that's, we have 6,000 customers, and half of them are associations. So it's really Heinz 57, depending on, for example, Contract Bridge League, I thought would not go virtual. They went virtual. They doubled their size. I didn't realize that people enjoyed playing bridge online, but they do. The realtors, on the other hand, we have some real estate groups. They really want to meet in person and talk with one another. And so, it really depends on the nature of the group. But I think that I think basically resort-oriented groups that come to the desert here are not locked up generally in a ballroom for 24/7. They're obviously here for a hybrid experience of outdoors and indoors, leisure and business. It's not the CPA exam is not going to take place at a resort. It's going to go to an airport property where everybody can fly in, they meet, they take the exam, and they become a CPA. So the same thing with the bar associations. If you sit for the bar, they're not going to take you to La Quinta and, glance out at the pool when you can't go in it. So we're experiencing a lot of people that are doing the hybrid, mainly for educational purposes, trending. Even the Alice conference that we attend, which is the lodging association owners, they shared a lot of data. There's a lot of screenshots that you want to take home and relate back to your ownership. They are not the lay by the pool with a cocktail crowd. And then we're seeing some people that prefer the desert or a resort, Scottsdale, Santa Fe, mainly because of the safety, the perceived safety of being in a outdoor-ish environment. And urban communities right now are having a hard time because the traditional office buildings are vacant, and the streets just look, closed. So I think you guys have a tremendous couple of years ahead of you, mainly because you're a great destination, getting greater, and you're also what people are buying right now. It'd be a hard time to sell a downtown condo in San Francisco, but it'd be an easy time to buy one in Palm Springs. I mean, that if I were selling a condo, I'd like to be selling the one here. We've run out of time. And is there any last remarks you want to make to our audience?
I just want to thank ConferenceDirect. We're going to sign back up to be a strategic partner again. We were a strategic partner in the past. We're signing that, and we're coming back on board now that we've got some revenues coming in. We're ready to be collaborative and to work with you and your team on how do we fully recover this destination, and you hit the nail on the head. I think we're in a great position to do that with the air access that we have. And just want to say thank you to your entire team of associates. The support that you've given us in the past has been phenomenal. Thousands of room nights and hundreds of leads, and we're already seeing it coming right out of the gate now. So thank you to everybody. We appreciate it, and we're all here to help. And if you run into the situation where you're talking to a hotel and they don't know who you are and what's kind of going on, call us, because we can call the GM and we can talk to whoever we need to make sure that they do know who you are and what's kind of going on, as some of these younger individuals get pushed into positions that maybe they're not used to having. So, and it's great to have you as a neighbor in Palm Springs.
I know.
So,
I love it.
appreciate your support for this destination, and I think you're right. It's going to get only better over the next few years. So I'm glad I'm here. And
Sounds good. Well, listen, my best to your staff and your family, and let's get together before I leave May 1st.
Sounds good. Thanks,
Okay.
Brian. All right.